the only way to do this was to demonstrate cooking for you guys, because cooking along, I think, would have been boring. Plus, I think it would have been difficult for a lot of people to have internet access and be able to watch anything in their kitchen, because not everybody has a way to do that with, portable iPad or laptop or whatever. So this is the only way I knew to do it. So I cooked in my kitchen and recorded it for you. And the first two segments are one recipe, the chili recipe, and that's what we'll start with. And then there's three more segments with the other three recipes. So I think Doug's going to break between, and we can talk. You can ask questions if you want to know what I did or why I did something or whatever. And I'll answer questions, and I'll even turn my video on in between. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the very first ever virtual cooking class at the 27th Annual People First Conference. This is a new experience for all of us. It's 2020. Everything's been really different. So we're not going to really do a cook-along class, but I am going to cook for you today and show you what things we're going to be cooking out of the folder handout that you had. That's the cooking class recipes, pictures on the front, and the recipes are inside. First thing we're going to do this morning, and by the way, welcome to my kitchen. We're going to be doing Wendy's chili. I picked a few recipes I thought would be nice to have as we go into the fall, but I also thought it'd be kind of fun that we could do something that you can get at a fast food restaurant, but this way you can make it at home. Now, Wendy's did not give me their secret recipe. This is a copycat recipe that you can find online, and I'd made it before and knew it was very good, so I thought we would start with that. So, first thing we have, if you have your recipe, Wendy's copycat chili on the second page. The first thing we need is 1 to 2 pounds of lean ground beef. Now, I got it this way. You can also get it in tubes at the store, but either way, you can find it at your local store. Now, you can use less than 2 pounds. 1 pound is fine. It's a little less meaty, but it's really delicious. You also can use ground turkey, ground chicken, if you want something leaner. This happens to be, I got lucky and found some 90% lean ground beef. So I'm going to put this in here, get my stove going. Now, when it comes to cooking hamburger, it's something that I've always struggled with, trying to get it broken up properly. I want to show you before I'll get it all gooey. I have this really neat tool that I found about a year ago. This is one of the neatest things ever. I don't know how for sure I live without it. It's not expensive. It's super handy. You can use this for chopping up your meat for chili and things. You can use it for chopping eggs up for egg salad. It's a lot of fun to use because you just kind of beat it in the pan. But you just kind of punch and twist. Now there's a lot of other ways that you can do this with ground beef. Another thing I used to use was a potato masher. Works pretty well. Not as good as this chopper, but it works. Also, if you have like a wooden spoon with a straight edge, that works fine too, to chop your meat up as it cooks. But I have to say that this little handy thing is like the best. So I just kind of, as it's heating, I just kind of chop. Maybe I can show you. I'm burning myself. You kind of just chop and twist and chop and twist. So however you accomplish getting this chopped up as it browns, doesn't really matter. You can do it however you like. Now over here beside me, I'll turn this off for a sec. I'll show you the other ingredients that we have today that are on your recipe list that are going to go in this chili pot. And what I'm going to do after I show you this is go ahead and brown my meat and get some other things ready, and I'll bring you back to show you how we'll put it all together. But we have tomato sauce, pinto beans, kidney beans, stewed tomatoes, and also we have what some people call rotel, but it's a mixture of green chili and tomatoes. We also have an onion. Recipe called for a green bell pepper. Well, interestingly, the store did not have green bell peppers, so we got red, which is no problem. You can substitute one for the other. Also, you need 2 packs of mild chili seasoning. Any brand is fine. You can actually find these with no sodium as well, or low sodium if that's what you need. So I'll go ahead and get the meat browning. And I'm going to get some onion and pepper chopped up for us. And then once I get that going, I'm going to bring you back and show you what we're going to do next. Okay. Okay, so the hamburger has been browned. We also, I'd forgotten to put out because it was in the refrigerator. We also have in the recipe 2 stalks of celery diced. So this is what you need is 2 stalks of celery, not the whole big bunch. I diced those. I diced up the onion that we had and that real pretty red bell pepper. And I've got it in here with the hamburger. You can see it's very pretty, very colorful. Now, if this hamburger has a little water in it, but it was very, very lean. If your burger is more on the fatty side, you may need to dip off some fat or drain it. That's kind of up to you. Sometimes people like to rinse it in hot water too to remove as much fat as possible. Then we follow down our recipe, and the next thing that we need to do is put in our tomatoes. Now, our recipe calls for stewed tomatoes. And you may not have ever seen stewed tomatoes at the store before. Some people just don't notice them. But this is what they look like. This is just one brand. And you can get them in any brand that manufactures tomatoes. Stewed tomatoes are a little different than diced. They're like a slice of tomato. And there's a little bit of onion and green pepper in the can and a little bit of sugar. Now, interestingly, because it was first of the month when the shopping was done, stewed tomatoes, there were none in the store. I happen to have 1 can at home. We needed 3. So we're going to use 1 can of stewed tomatoes in ours and 2 cans of diced tomato. It doesn't really make any flavor difference. So whatever works for you is fine. Stewed tomatoes, you do need to kind of chop them up a little bit with your tool or your potato masher or whatever, where diced tomatoes can just be dumped in. But I just wanted to know you to know the difference between stewed tomatoes and diced tomatoes. So we just put those stewed tomatoes in. I'm going to give them a little bit of a chop with my handy dandy hamburger chopper because it works really, really well. So I got them chopped up. So it's quick and easy. Then we have 2 cans of diced tomatoes. They just get dumped right in, juices and all. This is really an easy recipe, honestly. Here's the other can. So that makes us 3 cans of tomatoes total. We'll give that a quick stir. All right, and next on our list is a can of tomato sauce. Again, any brand works. Plain old tomato sauce. Give that a stir. So then next on the list, it says a cup of water. These are my measuring cups. You can have any kind of measuring cup that you have will work. Sometimes the ones with the markings down the side of the glass work much better. Just put a cup of that in there. Then we're going to put in our mild chili seasoning mixes. You need 2 packets of this. You can find these in any store also. This is where all your good flavors come from. So we just dump those in. This is kind of a dump recipe, really. We get those in the pot. Stir that into our tomatoes and our meat and our vegetables. I think this chili is also a good way to get a little bit more vegetables in your diet. If you're not real crazy about vegetables as a side dish, you can always put them in something like chili or soup and get them in your system one way or another. Then we have on our list kidney beans. Now the beans in this recipe call for being put in, dumped in, not rinsed or drained. Sometimes recipes will call for you to put the beans in a colander and rinse them with water. This particular recipe, the The consistency of the liquid in the can is part of the recipe. So you just dump them in. And here's our pinto beans. Give them a stir. And I almost forgot our Rotel. Now Rotel is a brand name. You can find that in the store easier probably. This is another brand called Red Gold. It says petite diced tomatoes with green chilies, and it's really the same thing. And guess what? That's it. All we have to do now is bring this to a boil, turn it down and let it simmer, let it cook, all the flavors blend together. And at the end, there's a little tiny bit of white vinegar to give it a little tang, and it's done. So while this is cooking, I'm going to get ready to show you the next thing we're going to work on. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Charlotte, Dede, can you freeze that if you make it that much in a pot? Can you freeze some of that in the freezer?
Yeah, you sure can. It freezes really well. I like to freeze it in containers that hold a couple of cups, and that's something I can thaw out and have for lunch or dinner at some point later. So, and I do mention that at the end is how you can make this and how much it makes, and you can freeze it for another day.
Kelly, Dede, you mean? Can you substitute the? Do you have to put celery in there, or can you just put the green peppers?
You can leave in or take out any of those vegetables you want to. It doesn't hurt a thing. So if you don't like celery, leave it out.
I don't like it in my chili.
Understand.
What is the tool that you are using to chop hamburger? This is Darla Urban.
You can find those on Amazon. I saw one probably about 4 days ago that actually was only like $5. Pampered Chef makes one, but it's much more expensive. So if you go on Amazon and do a search for something like a meat chopper tool or words like that, you'll find numerous ones made by numerous companies. So I think the one I got, and I actually bought several and gave some as gifts, I found on sale for like $6 a piece about a year ago. So, and it's worth it. It is handy, so handy.
You can actually get them at Walmart and I believe even the Dollar Tree. I have two of them. They're slightly different. Mine are a 4 and yours look like a 6 maybe.
Yeah.
And just a note to everyone.
Oh, look at there.
If you want to talk, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Oh, yes. Good point.
I have a question. You were cooking on a gas stove, and I just moved to a new house where we went from an electric stove with a glass top to a gas stove, and my wife's been having trouble adjusting. Are there any adjustments that you need to make in terms of temperatures or cooking time or anything, depending on whether you're cooking on a gas stove top or an electric?
I think you kind of have to know your own stove. I've almost always had gas. I grew up with a dad that worked for the gas company, so we had gas everything. And I think each stove is different. When I got my stove a few years ago, it was pretty wild because it has like a superpower burner that, will boil water really quickly. And I had to adjust to that because it would scorch things really quickly and burn things really quickly. So I think it depends on your stove. And even with electric stoves, to try to recommend someone use low or medium or whatever, it doesn't really help because every stove is different. So I didn't really help you, did I?
Yeah, thanks for that direct answer.
Yeah.
It was an honest one.
The type of pan you use too makes a difference.
Yes.
It sure does. Yes, it does. And some pots stick easier than others. I found that the heavier bottom the pot has, usually it's better. A thin one, even if it's stainless steel, will stick really quickly. I like non-stick surfaces, but the problem with those is over time they kind of wear out, and get little chips in them. So you have to be careful about that. But yeah, you are absolutely right. The pan does make a difference.
Somebody asked about freezing. I know that that's actually, chili is one of those things that actually tastes better the second day.
It does.
Same
Yes,
as
it-
spaghetti.
Wait until they go on.
I think most soups do taste better when they're warmed back up.
Because you get all that time for the flavors to kind of,
Meld together.
Yes. Yes. And the other thing too that I didn't mention is that you can use any bean that you want, or no beans. In my house, my granddaughter and I kind of decided that we aren't that big of a fan of beans. So normally when I make chili for us, I don't put any beans at all. Or if I do, I might use black beans because we like them. They're a little smaller and we like those a little better. So kind of,
Well,
it's really what you want.
people will argue with you that real chili doesn't have beans in it anyway. That's chili con carne, and real chili doesn't, or has sliced beef rather than. So when you get into chili, there's all kinds of different kinds.
Oh, and depends on what part of the country you live in too, for sure.
All right. Any more questions before we go to the next recipe?
As my sister buys these, she buys the, it's like the flavored chili one. She buys the flavor, you don't have to use the pack, and it's already in a can.
The chili flavored beans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works too. If you're happy with the flavor of those, then you can use those and skip the packet. You're right. That would work.
If she still puts the packet in it and makes it thick.
Yes, there's thickeners in the packet, right? And some people don't like it like that.
Yeah, I
All
like
right.
this.
Okay, so the next recipe, and it's in your little packet of recipes, is the crock pot creamy potato soup. And this is one I think we did in class before at Jackson's Mill when we were doing small appliances, crock pot
Yeah.
recipes and things.
Mhm.
And it was a big hit, but of course
Yeah.
there's some people that weren't there. So I wanted to show it again because it's easy, very, very easy. And it's definitely a comfort food for fall. So let's see what happens here and see what you think. Well, we're on the other side of the kitchen now. The chili, you might be able to barely see, is behind me on the stove simmering, and it smells so good. But I'm on this side because I wanted to show you a crock pot recipe. In your recipe packet is the creamy crock pot potato soup. Now, interesting about this recipe, it really should be called lazy man soup because it's so simple. You don't even have to peel a potato. And it's so good. It's actually become my favorite potato soup over the years, and I've made it for large groups, small groups, and at my house. It is just so wonderful. And you can actually add things to it if you like. If you like to add cheese, etc. at the end. But I can show you how simple it really, really is. But first I want to show you something. My crock pot's here. Might look a little odd. Looks like it's got a plastic bag in it. Well, actually, that is kind of what it is, except this bag is made for crock pots. It's heat resistant. It's kind of like if you ever did a roasted turkey in the oven in an oven bag. It's similar to that, only it was made specifically for slow cookers. I hadn't seen these till a year or so ago, and they're pretty neat. You might want to check into them. Messy crock pots are probably one of my worst, I don't know, nightmares for dishes. They're so bulky and you're so afraid you're gonna break them when you wash them. This kind of takes all that away. And I'm not advertising for the company, I'm just telling you this is a really nice way to eliminate that mess. Because when you're done and you've eaten what you want and you take your leftovers out and put them in the fridge, you just lift the bag out and tie it shut and toss it. So worth a thought anyway. Nice little time saver. So I have a crock pot liner in here, obviously. This recipe is like another dump thing. You have cream of chicken soup, 2 cans. Any brand is fine. Fat-free is fine. Whatever you want to use. Fat-free products actually in this soup are perfectly fine, and nobody knows the difference. So you just dump those in. And I've got a scraper here. I'm going to scrape the extra out so we don't miss any of this good flavor. There's one. Then a second can of the cream of chicken. You can also use cream of celery in this if you prefer not to have meat. You can use the cream of celery soup and it works fine. I've also used cream of mushroom soup in this when that's what I had. Then the recipe calls for you to put in the chicken broth. We're using 3 cans of chicken broth. It's a standard size can. I believe it is a 14-ounce can. Same thing. You can use any brand. You can use salt-free, fat-free. Doesn't matter. We'll put those in here. And what you want to do is after you dump these in, is you want to stir it up real well and get these soups and broths all blended together in the crock pot. No big deal, just takes a minute. And I have a whisk that's nylon, so it won't hurt my liner here. And I just kind of gently whisk around a little bit. Get that soup and the broth mixed together. Then the trick for the creamy part of this soup is cream cheese. 8-ounce block of cream cheese. Comes in a box, wrapped in foil. You take the foil package out of the box. Let this sit at room temperature in your kitchen for a while until it's softened. And then you can cut it up. I think in the recipe I said 8 pieces. Well, I cut this one in 10. So you're doing this so you can pull the cream cheese pieces will fall apart. Because what this is going to do is melt and it makes the creaminess in the soup. So we put these in, kind of break them apart as you put them in the pot. And then use your whisk or your wooden spoon or whatever and kind of whisk that around in that soup and broth a little bit. Kind of try to break it up a little more if you can. If you can't, it's no big deal. What you do is part way through the soup cooking, you can take the lid off and stir it kind of vigorously and get that melty cream cheese kind of all blended in together. You can do that a couple times while it's cooking and that helps a lot. This is really, really good soup. So here's the secret. Here's why you don't have to peel potatoes. This is frozen Southern style potatoes. And this says diced. Southern style is the trick. Now, I do know people, it's Southern style hash browns actually. I do know people that make this soup with shredded hash browns. I don't care for it that way myself. I like it more of a traditional potato soup. So this happens to be Ore-Ida. You can get generic brands that are less expensive, but the key is you want the square cut potatoes. You don't want the shredded kind, unless that's what you prefer. And you let them thaw out right in the bag. Literally let the bag lay in the fridge till it thaws and then sit it on the counter for a little while until you're ready to put the soup together. These are peeled diced potatoes. I didn't have to peel anything. It's so nice. So you dump them in. I'll get those a little stir. And then onion, 1/3 cup diced. Celery, 1/3 cup diced. I did these when I was prepping the veggies for the chili, so they were ready to go. Now, if you don't care for celery or you don't care for onion, you can leave this out. I like both, so I put them both in. And then the last thing on the recipe card, or the recipe in your packet, is a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Whoop. I went a little over, but I like pepper. So you just give this a stir. It's done. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then the crock pot does the cooking for you. So you put the lid on. And that's all you have to do. You just wait. Now our recipe says to cook the soup on low for 2 hours. Stir it well, and then put the lid back on and cook for 2 more hours on low. And that's all you have to do. You could actually keep this soup on low pretty much all day. Stir it a couple times. It holds really well. If you have a warm setting on your crock pot and you feel like the soup is done to your liking, just turn it down on warm until dinner time. Or you can eat some make it in the morning, eat some for lunch, put it on warm, and eat some for dinner. It's very, very, very good. You can add shredded cheddar cheese if you like cheese. Multitude of possibilities. So there's your creamy crock pot soup. So when we come back in a minute, I think we're going to do scotcheroos. What do you think? So what did you think?
Yeah, how about that? Although, what is all this cheating with the no chopping everything up?
Yeah,
You're in
right.
the kitchen. Where's your cutting potatoes and come on.
Oh,
Well, now-
she's doing it the safe way, Doug.
Hey, the easier the
And the
better. That's
easy
the way it
way.
should be. That's right. It's the easy way.
Pretty good.
I don't think it would have been real fun just to watch me chop. Now, come on.
No.
One thing I didn't mention too is that one time when we all came to the ARC building in Clarksburg for a meeting, I know that we had some folks that wanted a vegetarian version, and we made this same soup. Now you can use real potatoes, raw potatoes, peel and chop them. And what we did that day was we used Yukon Gold potatoes and vegetable broth and cream of celery soup and made this same soup, and it was a vegetarian version. So you can do that as well. There's, it's pretty flexible all the way around. And like I said, you certainly can use fresh potatoes.
Hey, Dee,
Yeah.
can you also do that with the pepper steak too? I make pepper steak in the crock pot. Can you put the rice and the peppers and onions peppers, onions in your chicken, in your broth, and your vegetables all in one, or do you have to do it separate?
I've never had good luck using rice in a crock pot recipe, even though there are many that show it. But I do have a recipe for crock pot pepper steak that's very good and has the meat and the onions and the peppers, broth, soy sauce, I think garlic and ginger. And it's very good, but I cook the rice separately.
So I don't use soy sauce in mine. I just use beef broth. I mean, the beef bouillon cubes.
Uh-huh.
I put that in there, and then I put the beef in there, and then first I fry up the onions and the peppers, and then put them in the crock pot, and then I fry and shear the meat real good, and then put that in there, and then I put the beef bouillon cubes in there, and then I put some water in there, and then I put some roux in there. That's flour and butter, and then stick it in there, and then let it cook for 4 hours.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Right,
Now, the recipe I have, you thicken with a little bit of cornstarch mixed with some broth, and at the end you stir that into that hot mixture. But as far as the rice goes, there are crock pot recipes like for casseroles that include rice, but I've never thought they turned out very good for me. So I don't put the rice in with mine.
Me neither. I do it at the cook it separate from the crock pot.
Yeah, I think it works better.
Yeah, it does.
Anybody else have questions about the soup?
Dede, I have a question. This is Darla Urban. The cans of soup you put in at the beginning, can you put one can of each instead of?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can do whatever mixture of soups you like. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, I've done cream of celery, cream of mushroom,
I was thinking like one can of like cream of celery and one can of cream of chicken or whatever.
Yes, it would be really good. And you could even do that with the cream of celery and then skip putting the fresh celery in if you like celery.
That's cool.
It's a really good comfort food.
What kind of cost would you say? Obviously, as we've tried to say before, it's always cheaper to make your own than it is to go out and buy pre-made stuff. So even though you're getting inexpensive, cream of mushroom soup to keep making more stuff, you're getting a lot more mileage out of it. What are you talking about cost to make something like this?
Well, it depends on where you shop. Aldi's, for example, in my area, you can get those cans of soup for like 49 cents,
That's what
where
I
they're
thought.
$1.79 for Campbell's, at the local Kroger. The same with the frozen hash brown potatoes. They are probably $3 or more a bag at most of the major grocery stores, but I've actually found those at the dollar store for $1. So, and bought several of those, stashed them in the freezer. The only difference I found between the more expensive frozen potatoes and the less expensive is there's usually a little more skin on the potatoes or in the bag. And it doesn't make any difference though in the soup itself, unless you just don't like to see that. But so you can shop around and, find things and make this real inexpensively. But also, if you have fresh potatoes and you have time to peel and cut, that works fine too. And sometimes they're super cheap at the store.
Well, and you could take the middles and use that in your soup, and then you could make yourself potato skins and put some other stuff and make a whole appetizer for another time.
Yes, you
All
could.
right.
You could.
Any more questions before we go to the next one?
Oh, I was just gonna say something that making your own foods, Cindy Brockman, people's first Eastern Piano present, depending on your health issues, can benefit from it. Like substitute some things that help you out.
I cannot hear exactly what she said.
She said that you could swap out some of the ingredients to be more of a benefit. You want to explain that a little bit more, Cindy, what you were asking or saying?
So let's just say, like you have a gluten-free diet or something like that, and like let's say someone's you're like you in the cookbook on the chili. Like let's say you can't have certain things in the chili, so making your own chili is rewarding because you know that you can eat it, and there's different varieties of experimenting cooking science.
Well, so you could grow your own potatoes and grow your own stuff, and then you can make your own soup and chili. And like Dale said in the first segment, you know what's in it, so you don't have to worry about whatever you bought. If it's onions or what have you, you don't have to watch the news and say, oh yeah, by the way, remember 2 weeks ago when you ate such and such? Well, we found we had to recall those because so that way, like you're saying, Sydney, you can really get all that. You get the best nutrition, fresh, and it's a lot less expensive. So that's good.
Yeah. And I can tomatoes. I can tomatoes, so that's what I usually use.
I know you're gonna have like a growing your own food soon. So growing your own food is also rewarding because you learn how to grow your own food and become a self-sufficient. Like in our meeting with I can't remember what it was called, but there was this thing about employment, and we learn how to grow our own food. And I know you guys are going to grow some stuff. So Sebastian was with us.
Oh, okay, cool.
Did you get it at the Dollar Tree or Dollar Store for $1? Was it Dollar Tree or Dollar Store?
Let's see. It probably was, oh gosh, what was the name of that store? There was a store that had everything like $5 and less, but it wasn't Five Below. And it turned to a Dollar Tree after that. But some of those dollar stores have the big refrigerator and freezer sections. Dollar Tree does. And often you can find things like those Southern style hash browns in their freezer section for $1.
And I believe that Dollar Tree either bought Family Dollar or the other way around, because I've got a Family Dollar near my house, and it says don't miss our Dollar Tree section, and then there's a section just for. And again, we're not endorsing any of these brand names. This is just different thing that people have gone. Okay, all right. What's your next segment, Dede?
Well, okay, so the next recipe is the one that's on the top of the first page inside your flyer. It's called Scotcheroos. It's a dessert. It's kind of a Rice Krispie treat twist. But this recipe's been around for like ever because it was something I loved when I was a kid in the 1960s, guys. So check out this recipe. It's really tasty, and I'm going to show you how to make it. Well, now it's time for scotcheroos. In this pan, from the recipe, we have 1 cup of white corn syrup. You can get this in glass bottles or plastic at the store. 1 cup of plain white sugar, and 1.5 cups of peanut butter. Those go in a big pan, like this one, and mine's starting to scorch. And you just melt those together until the peanut butter is melted. Bring it to a boil, and then turn it off. Easy enough so far, right? So I'm gonna get the spoon clean. Next step is you're gonna put in 6 cups of Rice Puff cereal. Now, Rice Krispies is the brand name that people are most familiar with. This is an off-brand. It costs about half the price of Rice Krispies, and it works perfectly fine. So you dump those in. Like I said, we have a dump theme today, it seems. And you mix those in with your peanut butter, sugar, and syrup mixture. And it doesn't take very long, but you just kind of work it, see, until you get that crispy rice cereal all coated up with that peanut butter and sugar mixture. It's kind of like making Rice Krispie treats, but in this case you don't have the marshmallow involved. All right, so I've got that done. And real quick, I'm going to slip on some gloves, which you might say, what is she doing? Well, the next step is, and this stuff is kind of warm, to say the least, you need to have buttered hands and put it in a pan and pat it down like you do Rice Krispie treats. Before I came back, I buttered a 13 by 9 by 2 pan, and I did that by having softened butter, put on a glove, and smear that all over. It says to butter it generously, and you definitely want to do that so that they won't stick when you try to cut them and take them out. So I'm going to dump the mixture into the 13 by 9 pan, and it actually pours out pretty much every morsel. I'm going to move this hot pan out of the way. Be right back. Then you can start out, since it's pretty hot, you can start out with like a rubber spatula like this. And you can pat that down, and the pan will get a little hot, so be careful. You can pat that down pretty well with something like this. Then take some softened butter, put it on your gloves, and then you can pat down, hopefully you can see this, pat down that mixture and kind of level it out more. I like to kind of squish them down so that they're level. Makes a better looking bar candy. Then take off my gloves, my buttered gloves. And you know, this year we've all had a lot of gloves around, so this is a good way to hygienically and less messy do things like buttering a pan. And the next part of this recipe is butterscotch and chocolate chips. Semi-sweet chocolate morsels, just like you would put in chocolate chip cookies. And the other is the same type of chips, only butterscotch. This case it was Toll House morsels that I found that were butterscotch. You melt those together. And I've already done that, because it's a little boring to just watch chocolate melt. Now, this mixture is a little stiff, but it's this butterscotch chocolate mixture that is just absolutely wonderful. This used to be one of my favorite bar cookies when I was young, which was 100 years ago, right? You guys know that. So you scrape all that chocolate out, chocolate and butterscotch, and then it's a little tricky, but you work with that and spread it out pretty much like you would do icing on a cake. And it's kind of sticky and kind of stretchy. But it's worth it. It's worth the work. Because this is a very, very, very good treat. Now I did this in more of a hurry so I could show you. It doesn't hurt if you let the Rice Krispie mixture cool a little while you're melting your chocolate and butterscotch. It doesn't necessarily help it spread any easier, but you can take your time. You don't have to like have everything ready at the same time in this case. So as you see, what can happen is it starts getting where you get Rice Krispie pieces in the spoon with your chocolate. But I bet my granddaughter will be glad to have that. So you spread it around the best you can. And then it's done. All it has to do is cool. You can cool these faster once they get a little cooler and not so hot at the bottom. You can stick them in the fridge to cool them down a little faster, or you can just let them sit at room temperature. And once they're done, you cut them into bars, and I'll show you that later. But that's how easy it is. Pretty simple. Something you can keep the ingredients for around the house. Fun to make, you know, on a cold winter's night, or fun to make if you're having friends over. So nice little sweet treat, not real expensive, pretty simple to make. Not really any cooking processes that are dangerous. You don't have to boil anything and bring it to a certain temperature or whatever. You're pretty much just heating and just to a boil and turning it off. So there you go. Scotcheroos. Not the prettiest dessert, but boy, they taste good. Well, I wish we had smell-o-vision so you guys could have smelled that.
Ooh, I bet that was good.
Dede,
Yes.
I don't like butterscotch, so could I just substitute the the chips with the butter and peanut butter and chocolate chips?
Sure, you could put chocolate, all chocolate on there. You could put chocolate and peanut butter chips if you like peanut butter really well. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. If this particular thing was called Scotcheroos, it came about years and years ago, and it was a way to introduce butterscotch into some desserts. So if you don't care for butterscotch, just leave it out and substitute something you like better.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about that. Thank you.
Yep.
Being not a baker, why do you have to wait till the pan cools down before you try alternate methods to cool it faster?
Well, it's hard on your refrigerator to put hot foods in it.
Oh, okay.
And in my case, my refrigerator has glass shelves. So I don't want to put a hot pan on a glass shelf that's cold. It may crack.
That makes sense.
Please put butterscotch chips, not chocolate chips.
Can you just put butterscotch in it and not chocolate?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you can do, right. You can do the opposite of what Tina asked. You can use all butterscotch and
Good.
skip the chocolate.
How did she get the butter, the pan buttered?
How did I get the pan buttered?
Yeah.
I had my butter sitting out so it got soft at room temperature, and then I put a glove on, and I just took a knife and put a little glob of butter on my glove, and then smeared it all around the inside of the pan to make sure it was all coated real well so those wouldn't stick in my pan.
Is there anything you can use in place of the Rice Krispies?
What I used was an off-brand. It was, I believe it was Kroger's off-brand, and it was like $2 a box instead of $4 a box for brand name Rice Krispies. And I think that the standard cereals that we've seen for years, such as Rice Krispies and Cheerios and all those, I think you can find a generic or store brand in every store.
What? And the reality is, most of that stuff's all made the same company anyway.
Exactly.
Same
Right. A lot of things too, like corn syrup that's in this recipe, used to be the only one you could find was Cairo brand when I was growing up. Now you can even find that at the dollar store, Dollar Tree, places like that. So, you don't have to go with name brands. I'm all about finding something that's less expensive for sure. Always. So always check your dollar store if you have a grocery list. I kind of sometimes go to Dollar Tree first and then go to the grocery store after.
How long does it take to set?
How long does it take to set, cool off?
Yeah.
Probably not more than half an hour.
Oh, okay. Is there any other types of cereal or anything that you can use in place of the Rice Krispies?
I think you could use anything, Darla, that is crunchy cereal. And I wouldn't want to use something that has a lot of sugar because these are super, super sweet. So if you try to use something like, let's say a generic Captain Crunch, I think it would be so sweet that you could barely stand it.
Or sugar snacks or something like that.
Right. So you'd want something that really isn't pre-sweetened.
Okay.
Hey, so we have one more recipe left, and it is the Wendy's Frosty. On the top of your second page, Wendy's Copycat Frosty. This is super simple. And actually you can use about anything that you have. Blender, I have a food processor, anything that will mix it up really well will work. So you don't have to have a fancy blender or a fancy smoothie machine or anything like that. So all you need is 1 cup of softened ice cream. Here's some vanilla ice cream. All I did was let it sit out at room temperature for a little while, and just until the carton starts getting squishy and not rock hard like it is out of the freezer normally. Then you need a 1/4 cup of milk. I've got whole milk. You can use 2%. I'm sure that low-fat ice cream will work in this, and low-fat milk. No reason why it wouldn't. And then the other little secret ingredient in this copycat recipe is 5 teaspoons of Nesquik, which is just what you make chocolate milk from. So I'll put that in. Now this little food processor that I have is old. I've had this thing for 40 years, don't tell anybody, but it works great for something small like this. It might leak a little bit with liquids, but it's really handy and a lot easier for me to get this out and clean it up afterwards than having a whole big blender. So give this a try, see what happens. I've done this before. It was a little leaky. That's it. That's all you gotta do. So, take this off and see if I can get this in this glass without making a big old mess. Maybe. So you just put it in a glass, stick a straw in it, and you have a Wendy's Frosty at home. You didn't have to go anywhere. And you can make it yourself. There's our Frosty. It's really good. So, here's our chili. It's all done. Here we are, ready to serve it or sit down and have it yourself for dinner. I put a little cheese and a little sliced green onion on top. You can put sour cream on there, whatever. There's Fritos on the plate because they're really good in chili. Or so saltine crackers or oyster crackers, whatever you like. And then you have a Wendy's chili. So actually, here's your fast food meal at home. You did it all yourself. The nice thing is too that this chili makes a couple of quarts worth, so you can put that in containers and freeze it for later, thaw it out to have for lunch later, or invite somebody over to have dinner. There's plenty there for several servings, so you kind of saved yourself some time down the road when you make a pot of chili. The other thing that we made was our creamy potato soup. Came out great. Also put a little green sliced onion on top because I like that. But you can see the consistency of the soup once it's cooked. It's really nice. It's nice and thick, and really all it is the potatoes and the creaminess from the green cheese. You could also put grated sharp cheddar in this towards the end and stir it up real good while it's hot, or some Velveeta, something like that if you like cheesy potato soup. So there's another soup. It also makes about 2 quarts or maybe a little more. So there's plenty there to eat from for several days for lunch or share with a friend or a neighbor. And then we had our other little sweets, and they're kind of crazy looking in the pan, but you can see there's the final result. They're really neat. They cut neatly into squares. This would be something too that you could make and cut and put in a pretty box and put a bow on it and give to a neighbor or somebody for Christmas as some of your Christmas treat. Scotcheroos. So you have all 4 recipes. I hope you enjoyed them. I really hate more than anything that you guys aren't here to share this with me, because part of the fun at cooking class has been that you get to taste everything. But hopefully maybe next year we can get back to the usual. I'm not going to say the normal because normal keeps changing. But I've really enjoyed having you in my kitchen. I really wish you guys were here with me instead, but there's really not enough room for all of us. So enjoy the rest of the conference. Please let me know what you thought and be thinking about what you want to see next time. Actually, maybe we'll even do this again. It doesn't have to be for conference. We can do something fun maybe in the middle of winter. Okay? Let me know. Bye, guys. Miss ya.
Hey, Dee, can you substitute the chocolate for the strawberry Nesquik?
And the Frosty,
Yeah,
can you put something else in besides chocolate?
yeah, other than chocolate, like strawberry Nesquik.
Yes, you could use strawberry Nesquik. You could even use the syrups. You know, the kind of syrups like you get in a
Yeah,
squeezable bottle for ice
for
cream.
your sundaes. Yeah.
Yes, you could use caramel, butterscotch, chocolate, whatever you like. It doesn't really matter because you're just putting it in with vanilla ice cream. For that matter, if you prefer a vanilla Frosty, you just would leave it out altogether and just use a good vanilla ice cream and a little bit of milk.
Okay.
And I want to tell you, I've had to make my granddaughter a Frosty every single day since I did this video.
Oh, man.
What can I use to substitute the Nestle?
Well, if you like chocolate, probably something you might try is to get some plain cocoa, powdered cocoa, and mix that with a little bit of sugar and water and make your own little bit of syrup and put it in, and try that one time.
If you put peanut butter in there, does that gum up your blade at all with the Frosty?
Oh, I would say if it was a peanut butter that was kind of not super stiff like some natural peanut butters can be, I think it would be fine. I think I would put it like by the spoonful though, not in a big glob, and you might just have to run it a few more seconds, but it should work. Or you could get the peanut butter powder.
Oh, okay.
I have also used like the chocolate breakfast drink stuff or the French vanilla breakfast drink stuff to make those.
That'd be delicious, yeah. The creamer.
No, the breakfast drink stuff.
Oh yeah, instant breakfast.
Yeah, because that's got some of the vitamins and stuff in it that they want me to have.
Sure.
So I use some of that too.
You could even put protein powder in it.
Yeah.